Unity Technologies is making every effort it can to seemingly drive developers away from using their tools and their engine. If you're unaware, recently this sort of made headlines, and I wanted to wait to give sort of a breakdown of what's going on, but I also think I have a pretty good idea as to why they did this thanks to Eurogamer. So we're going to look at a VentureBeat article, we're going to look at a Eurogamer article to try to piece together what exactly has been going on. If this is sort of new to you or you didn't hear about this, there are different companies out there that license the use of their tools or their engine. This is something that you see with Epic with their engine Unreal, and they generally let you use it for free, but then when you hit certain thresholds of money, you pay them a royalty, right? So Epic is able, I think at some point they lowered some of what they took, even lowered some of the thresholds or raised them, whichever way you want to look at it, because they were making so much money off of Fortnite, but they were able to make it even easier for smaller studios to use the Unreal Engine and the Unreal tools. Now, there are people that are concerned about that, right? I've seen a lot of people express concern about, well, everybody's going to switch to Unreal, everybody's switching to Unreal 5, and then what if 10 years down the line, Epic is suddenly not so generous and they start charging exorbitant fees? Well, Unity pushed out changes and updates that was causing companies to say, we literally can't survive this. Like, we can't use your tools anymore, your engine anymore. This will not work. There were calls to boycott. There have been calls to shut ads off. There was a joint letter sent, and everyone is sort of confused as to like, what's going on? Why would you do this? Why would you suddenly make these changes, especially if it's going to be tectonic? Now, Unity's responded in a couple of different ways, trying to say that it wouldn't apply to everybody. It would only apply to some companies. They're also trying to walk some of it back and seemingly trying to survive. So generally, that's the gist of it, is like they pushed out this update. Everybody got really mad. They've tried to make it better. But even if they walk back everything 100% and just say, okay, we're not going to do any of this, I believe they've broken so much trust that it's going to be really hard for them as a company to weather this storm. There was even word got out that the guy in charge sold a bunch of his shares before this news hit, which I think should prompt some level of an investigation, almost as if he knew, like, this is going to really tank our value. I don't know why you would push out a change that you know is going to tank your value. And then he kind of prepared for that. And there was also sort of a credible threat on their building or wherever they're housed, and they had to shut down for a day. And it turns out that the threat came from somebody at the company. So it all felt very staged, all felt very fake, as if they were suddenly trying to say, oh, we're the victim here. We pushed out this update and now we're getting threats on our life or whatever. So I want to quickly look at VentureBeat just to give you a picture as to what happened. So a year after Unity raised its prices for enterprise and professional versions of its game engine, Unity on Tuesday added a new charge for smaller developers who meet thresholds for revenue and installs. Starting on January 1 of 2024, Unity will charge a Unity runtime fee for any game that surpasses a revenue and lifetime install in the preceding 12 months. Normally, Unity personal usage is free, and subscribers for Unity Pro pay $400 per seat. But under the changes announced today, Unity Personal and Unity Pro users will pay fees if they hit $200,000 in revenue in a year and 200,000 lifetime installs. For anywhere from 1 to a million installs, those users will pay 20 cents per install. So they've got this guy here, Mark Whitten, Unity Create president, in an interview with GamesBeat. He says it's a price increase. It's a business model change. From our perspective, we're working on ensuring that that there's an accurate exchange of value between Unity and its customers. But with that said, the price increase doesn't impact the significant majority of our customers. So they were trying to act as if, like, listen, this is going to affect that many people. In the earliest stages when this news hit, it looked like you were going to pay for every single install. So like if somebody deletes and reinstalls the game, like people could basically bankrupt the company, right? There was also different ways that we're going to be handling games if they hit Game Pass. What about demos? There were all these questions that didn't really have, quality answers. So they basically tried to right the ship, but it was kind of too late. You can see here as the article continues, there was something called the Death of Unity that was written, and as the story and other posts of social media reflect, skepticism is running high about Unity's intentions and whether the impact is as small as the company says it will. So Tiny Build CEO weighs in, right? And he says, there is not a single dev out there that would look at the announcement and think it was a good idea. We often factor in engine fees when making decisions on projects, and at face value, the math goes toward Unreal if we factor in free installs of demos, free to try versions on iOS, and play tests on Steam. I find it hard to believe this will actually go through. So oftentimes when this sort of thing happens, my initial skeptical, sort of maybe even cynical outlook is they did this because they're going to walk it back. The thing that they really wanted to do will look better, but they don't want to push that out first, right? It's like, well, I really want to smack you, so I'm going to threaten to punch you instead. Well, okay, and then I smack you. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that I know you're not going to like, but if you think I'm going to do something far worse and then I dial it back, you might think, oh, that wasn't too bad, right? Like, nobody likes to get smacked, but you get the picture, right? You say, well, we want to charge everybody a fee of $50 for every single time, somebody downloads your game. And then you walk it back, you're like, okay, instead of charging everybody $50, we'll charge you $1. And it's like, well, if you would have walked out with the $1 announcement, hypothetically, I'm just making up a figure, everybody would have gotten angry. They'd be like, why are you doing that? Like, that's not going to be conducive to our business model, especially this seems to be touching on mobile, and that's where the Eurogamer article comes in, because it's like, well, why would they do this? What would the real reason be? Well, again, part of me thinks they did have a version of this update, this new monetization structure that they wanted to trot out, and they knew it was going to be unpopular, so they walked out a really worse version on purpose, knowing that, oh, we'll walk it back and then we'll look like heroes. Well, the problem is, even if they walk it back now, they've broken so much trust and goodwill, a lot of these developers are just going to flock right into the arms of Unreal. But Eurogamer's input on this, I do think, is very helpful. Unity will quietly waive controversial fees if developers switch to its ad monetization service. So they just want to kill AppLovin. You're like, what's AppLovin? Well, let's take a look at the article. This is extremely helpful, I think, to get a big picture as to what's going on here. What's the real motivation? A fresh report into Unity's hugely controversial decision to start charging developers when their games are downloaded has thrown fresh light on the situation. Mobile gamer sources say that Unity has already offered some studios a 100% fee waiver if they switch over to Unity's own Level Play ad platform. The report quotes industry consultants that say this move is an attempt to destroy Unity's main competitor in this field, AppLovin. So that's what's going on here. This is not about like, oh, well, we want to walk out this thing, we're going to walk it back. I mean, that still could be a part of it, right? They still could be having a version of this update that they want to push out that they knew wasn't going to be popular. But this seems tied to this situation with the ad system that they want people to switch to. And they're like, oh, well, we'll waive the fee. The article continues because there's more to this, right? The Level Play suite, it allows you to control every aspect of your monetization strategy via in-game ads in Unity games for smartphones with various types of ads, ad testing, and analytics available to serve up commercial content most likely to earn money. We've all been there, right? We've all played a mobile game or seen somebody playing a mobile game, and there's all these ads that pop up. These are especially popular in free-to-play mobile games, right? It'll say in-app purchases, or what they'll do is you'll run out of turns in a particular game, or you run out of a currency, and they're like, well, you can watch an ad to get another life. You can watch an ad to try again, right? They'll do this. Well, what they're wanting people to do is switch to their system because that benefits them, that makes them money, and you can see here. This puts the whole runtime fee announcement in the mediation war spotlight. Consultant, I don't know how to say that name. Unity is saying migrate to Level Play or you will need to pay a crap ton of money, okay? For those small developers, there is no other option but to migrate to Level Play mediation to save their companies. The rest are already thinking about, or other game development engines, Godot or Cocos 2D. So basically what they're saying is there are people that are facing this situation, this update, and their only answer, their only way to sort of get around these runtime fees is to switch to Level Play Suite, which is Unity's suite for serving up monetization and ads inside of mobile games. So this is a giant I think like looky-loo. It's like, well, we may have everybody looking over here like, oh, look at this big terrible thing, and no one's paying attention to what they're really doing. What they're really doing is they're trying to motivate all of the the mobile customers that are developing games to switch to them, because like, oh, hey, we'll waive that terrible fee, because the fees are a threat to many of these smaller companies. It's going to be so costly, they will not survive. Like suddenly having this immediate surge of cost for your company's operation will threaten your margins. It'll threaten everything. And when you do that, it makes it so the company can't even run. It's like, well, hang on a minute. We were counting on that money. We can't just pay all that money to you. Well, Unity can ride in on a steed and say, oh, no worries. We'll waive all those fees if you switch to level play and use us for your monetization within your games. The article continues. Unity makes an oblique reference to this plan in its blog post on the controversial fees, with a note that, quote, qualifying customers may be eligible for credits toward the Unity runtime fee based on the adoption of Unity services beyond the editor, such as Unity Gaming Services or Unity Level Play Mediation for mobile ad-supported games. Developers reading the blog post are then encouraged to please reach out to your account manager to learn more. This move puts context into the emphasis that Unity places on its use within smartphone gaming compared to the audience for Unity games on PC and console. So Unity, it says here, has yet to respond, because this is the jig is up. That's what they're doing. This is their goal. This is what they wanted to do. They're trying to push the other company off the table, right? The app loving company. That's their major competitor for serving up the monetization and the ads within mobile games. And we all know that mobile games are insane. We know that that's the primary driver for Microsoft trying to get Activision Blizzard. They've all but said they want King Mobile. Apple generated more money one year, I think, than like everybody combined. Microsoft, Sony, all of them. Like Apple just taking the 30% cut from mobile games made more money than all the gaming companies out there combined. And so if you think a large portion of that money, a large portion of that revenue is advertisement, especially there was sort of this growing stigma about paying for games on your phone, right? And that's when you got into the scenario of free, and then it would say in-app purchases. And then the in-app purchases became kind of a nuisance and kind of annoying. So now what they do is they have the in-app purchases and the currency and the things you can buy, but then they have those rhythmic ads popping up every time. The last time I tried to play a mobile game that, one of my kiddos enjoyed, I was like, this is terrible. I told my kids, I actually let my kids play some scummy mobile games on purpose. And when they got really frustrated and really sad, I said, these games are trash. The way you feel right now is because they want you to feel that way. They designed the game to upset you, to motivate you to spend money. I did this on purpose. Like I wanted them to see the nasty sort of predatory nature of many of the mobile games that are out there. They do these pop-ups where you accidentally click it, and then all of a sudden you're getting ready to spend money, or there's a pop-up and you click it and it takes you to another game. They're always advertising these stupid throwaway games inside of games that you already have. So we know there's a ton of money to be made in that sector and in that market. And Unity clearly knew this was not going to be a popular decision, but it's a way to essentially say, this is what we're doing, and if you can't survive these fees, well then just switch to our level play suite to do monetization in the mobile games, and when you switch to that, we'll waive all those fees. This is very, very manipulative and coercive. Like they're essentially passively, if not very forcefully, coercing companies to switch to them to waive the fees. And I think a lot of companies are going to be left with no choice. Now, the only thing that could come from this that could potentially be a good thing would be that this type of bad practice, this type of bad structure for engine and charging for installs or reinstalls or demos, all those question marks, all those things that got people pretty upset, I think it's just drawing attention to the good practices or the companies that aren't doing that. It's also a pretty good test case for all the fear-mongering when people are like, well, if everybody flocks to Unreal 5, Epic could really do some nasty things and control the market in the future. Well, you can just see how quickly this turned bad and turned sour for the company that tried it. And as far as their stock value, share value going down, I wouldn't be surprised if the CEO is fired or investigated, because they're going to look at this and say, you just did something that lost us a bunch of money and a bunch of goodwill and potentially a bunch of present and future customers maybe he's convinced them on the back end they'll make it up because of the mobile monetization angle, if they can get enough people to switch to level play. So there you have it, a quick recap on what happened, as well as what I think is the real reason, the real insight into what's going on. So good on Eurogamer to notice that and report on that. As always, these videos usually roll over into a members only debrief. So consider becoming a member and supporting the channel directly. You can click join and do that. If you're not going to do that, you can still follow the channel for free. Hit subscribe, hit the like button, and that gets you into all of my talk shows and my uploads for nothing. So do that, and it supports me as well. As always, if you enjoyed this video, I will see you in the next one.